Hi everybody, my name is Hunter. I made the game Words Rules for the Game Maker's Toolkit 2023 Game Jam. In this video, I'm going to quickly show you the game, talk about the idea and how to play, and then we'll poke around in the Unity project. So if there are any students out there learning Unity who want to see how this project was put together, I'm sort of happy to show that off, although it's not particularly impressive or anything. But anyway, so Words Rules is a puzzle game. The theme of the jam was role reversed. I eventually landed on thinking through Wordle and word puzzle games and letter puzzle games and games like Not Words, where often you have some set of constraints or hints or rules or whatever. In Wordle, there is an A in the second letter and there's a T somewhere in the letter, So you have these rules and you have to think through all those rules in order to land on what the word is. So for my game, I reversed that and tried to come up with a game where you were given the words and then you had to come up with the rules that would match them. So here you were given, so here's two random words, rakes and dozer, and you are given a bunch of rules and you have to choose the words that will all these rules will match them. You have to choose the ones that will eliminate as many other options as possible. So the goal is, how specifically can you describe these words? Can you, the best score down here of possible words remaining would be 2. You've come up with rules that exactly apply to these words and no others. So that's the objective. And I'm quite pleased with it. I did the prototype not confident I would finish the game jam and just sort of wanted to know if this idea was anything, and doing random programming projects is still kind of fun and it's rewarding. So let me just see if I can get it working. And I did, and I played it, and I was like, oh, there actually is something here to that sort of like lateral thinking of like, does a word not having duplicate letters, the same letter twice, or beginning with what's more rare, right? What's more, and of words that are like that, does the fact that the fourth letter being an E, does that how many overlaps are there on the words getting eliminated? Let's just think through this one. Fourth letter is an E again. Has a L down to 249, pretty good. And maybe begins with a consonant. Hey, I got there. Hey, fourth letter is an E again. Maybe that isn't that uncommon. And we'll say it starts with a consonant. Okay. See, 908 possible words. So even though this was the best possible score, there were still a lot of remaining words. So because of the random word choice, that's kind of happens. Some of the puzzles aren't as engaging as other ones. And I have ways to improve that involve a lot more statistics and than I had time for on the jam. But here we are. Let's see, I have a T, second letter's an I, and that got me go. And then the last round will be, we'll say touching vowels feels pretty rare, a letter I, and no duplicate letters. Yeah, pretty good. A. All right, I can live with an A. So anyway, that's Words Rules. Words Rules, they're both plural. It throws me off. Maybe it's not a great name, but it's, these are all 5-letter words. So Words, you get it. So I hope you enjoy. I hope you play it. If you can do an A or better, it's pretty good. I've only ever gotten the A++, the best possible score. I've only ever gotten it once, and one person has commented it. And as far as I know, nobody has ever gotten the perfect 100%. At least the difficulty curve is, there's something here. Cool. So let's hop over to the Unity project. I have a few sort of things to show that I think might be interesting to anyone learning Unity. The first is the word list. So this word list, I got this from Donald Knuth at Stanford University's word list from the Stanford Graph Base. And I actually pulled it from a GitHub repository. There you go. Word list, pretty easy to find those online. And the first bit of interesting code I wrote is the scriptable object in good old default namespace, in good old sample scene. We love to see it. A scriptable object that takes that text file of words. Each word is on its own line, and it calls the dot split function to turn that into from one string into an array of strings, each separated at that new line character, removing the new line character. And then I go through and clean it up, and that's once I have an array of strings, now I'm good to go. Now I've got this scriptable object, and I can work with it. Pretty simple. I think if you're a developer, I think the one takeaway, like if you look at this project, there's like one thing to understand, and that would be LINQ, L-I-N-Q. LINQ is if you look it up online, it's going to be very confusing. It's like a query system. But what it ends up being in practice is a bunch of really useful functions for working with lists and arrays. So this line of code, line 21 here, is actually doing a fairly complicated thing. It's getting rid of any of the strings in my list that are empty, like an empty new line characters. And then it is also making all the words lowercase, which I think they already are, but just in case. And I'm doing that through these LINQ expressions where inside of the functions, inside of this dot select function, and inside of this dot where function, these are just two separate function calls that are chained back to back to back. And that's the power of LINQ, is like chaining these things. Inside of each of these is a lambda expression, which is sort of a shorthand syntax for writing a function. So here it's a function that takes a string parameter and returns a bool. So it's just like this function, but it's just in line, written right in one line. So this one will set the list to the list, except only choosing the options where the item is not null or empty. So we're just getting rid of the null or empty ones. And then we're doing a sort of a process on all of them where we're choosing the dot lowercase version of the string and then applying it back to itself. And yeah, another place the LINQ is used is in this is sort of the main big important function that counts, that goes through every single word, and it counts how many of them are the rules we have chosen applied for. So those get passed into here. Those rules have a function called validate word. So let's say the ends in a y function. The validate word just gets the last character and checks if it's y. And we did that to lowercase, so I only need to check the lowercase y. So the way the LINQ function works is we have a not chained but nested. We are counting all of the, for every item in the array, we will count once if the function here returns true. And the function here, rules.all, returns true when everything in its operator is true. And here I'm passing in the validate word function. So the syntax here is a little wonky. It doesn't really feel like idiomatic C#, but it is enjoyable to write something that would be as complex as this in a single line of code. But you don't have to use the ternary operators. Everybody does. So that's an interesting challenge. So yeah, word list is in the dot split and by a new line character, LINQ to do basically everything. Checking if things are vowels or everything is actually not even sure alphabetical works. I don't think I used that one. I'm using LINQ just all over this project, all over the place. The last little call out of this project in terms of like interesting positive takeaways is one thing I made sure I did was separate all of the data of the game from all of the user interface, because UI for me is very annoying. I really don't enjoy doing UI. So I, as much as possible, try to have my game work without touching the UI. And then when I do UI, I can mock it up and then later go in and add the functionality to the buttons and the dynamic text and stuff. And having the problem of the UI being mock-upable and then later making it full of the right data, that's just like the only workflow that I found that works, because I just can't stand it. So everything here is in one scene, but let's hide this round over panel. Let's hide this game over panel. So yeah, all the text that you see on the screen is mostly just pulling from these scriptable objects, like your current just a scriptable object that holds onto an integer and holds onto a float, and that's all they do. And then we just display that in a Text Mesh Pro component, and that's it. That's the whole thing. I just update those things, and it works. And the buttons just call functions, and it just works. And I have an event system to listen to game state changes, and they turn on and off the children, and I just drop that on an object, and it just works. The game doesn't really have much of a sense of state. Everything can happen all the time at any time. Nothing's really dependent on any other parts of the code, really. I have a few race conditions once it gets set up, but yeah, some clean enough separation. Frankly, it's all actually kind of messy. I'm using scriptable objects for a lot of the information, but I'm also using static properties for a lot of the other information. And sort of when I wrote the code, depending on when I was like, I just got to get this working in 10 minutes and I want to go to sleep. It's midnight. I'm tired. So anyway, that's the project. It's all in one scene. We just turn it on and off different panels. And the game's programmed in a way that you can kind of push any button at any time and it'll try its best or fail silently. And then, it doesn't seem to be too buggy. I would need to refactor quite a bit of this. The rules themselves is a mess, but that's it. So anyway, I hope you find it interesting looking inside of a project, or I always think it's interesting when a developer talks about their process with something. Is this? I turned on the. There we go. Turn that back on so I can hit continue. Any other interesting challenges I hit on this? Really the idea was the hard part. Brainstorming rules. I kept talking to friends who I know like word games and getting their inputs. And, I had a lot of really great suggestions that I just didn't have time to do or didn't have the ability to do. Like if it's a noun or if it's a plural of a word, or if it's has the same Latin root, or if it's an anagram, all sorts of things that would be fun to think about, like, ooh, how rare is that? How many words that are anagrams also end in S? It's like weird lateral connections between thinking about how rules are composed and what patterns they have in with them, which makes them such an interesting topic for all these different word games, including mine, which I'm pretty happy with. So, rate it if you enjoy it, if that's still going on. If not, whatever. But